Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about your major genetic disorders that you may need to memorize for medical school. We have a lot of disorders, so let's get straight to it. I want to give a huge shout out to Alexandra for providing the mnemonics that we're going to use in this video. And I want to give a shout out to Liam Temple for providing a link to her PowerPoint where she describes these different mnemonics. So let's first talk about your autosomal dominant disorders, and the mnemonic's going to start with "My family hunts on Mars and you're AQ astronaut." So the my stands for a myotonic dystrophy. That's basically a DMPIC defect in your genes that's going to result in your muscle cells turning into adipose cells. So as you can imagine, that can have a lot of different effects on your body. Family correlates with familial hypercholesterolemia. That's going to be a decrease in your LDL receptors, which is going to increase your serum cholesterol, and that's going to lead to the formation of plaques and atherosclerosis and eventually heart disease. Hunt's is going to be Huntington's disease. That's going to be a triplet repeat expansion of CAG, and as a result, you have a gain of function, which is going to kill your neurons, particularly in your basal ganglia. And then you have on is going to be osteogenesis imperfecta. That's going to be a defect in your collagen, and two genes coding for that is called 1A1 and called 1A2. These defects lead to your defective collagen, which leads to connective tissue problems. Mars is going to be Marfan syndrome. That is a FBN1 gene defect. It's going to lead to the deformity of your chest, as well as the long arms, as well as some eye problems as well. Some people think that Abraham Lincoln actually had Marfan syndrome. NEAR is going to correlate with neurofibromatosis type 1. That is going to be a NF1 gene defect that codes for actually a tumor suppressor. So if you don't have an active tumor suppressor, obviously you're going to have tumor formation, and it's going to start off benign, but it can quickly become malignant if you don't have treatment. And also this gene, actually, if you already have a defect in it, it's much higher likelihood to actually defect even further and develop a more serious symptoms. And then for acute is going to be your acute intermittent porphyria. Basically, it's a porphyrin ring defect. Your porphyrin ring is especially important for red blood cells because they need oxygen, right? So and basically porphyrin ring binds heme, and heme is the iron molecule that actually binds oxygen. So you're going to have decreased levels of oxygen in your body. You can imagine what a huge impact that would have on your red blood cells and your mitochondria. And then astronaut is going to be achondroplasia. Basically, it's a FGFR3 gene defect. It's going to lead to an increase of receptor tyrosine kinase activity at a very young age, and that leads to premature ossification. So if we remember, when you're young, your bones are only so long, and then when you get older, they get longer, and then after they get longer, you have that ossification. But now you have premature ossification when you're young, so you're going to have short bones for the rest of your life, which is what we see in those types of patients. Now moving on to autosomal recessive. The mnemonic is crazy hags cast potions in hexes. And basically, crazy is going to correlate with your cystic fibrosis. That is a CFTR defect, and CFTR codes for a chloride channel. And with that defect, you're going to have things happening in your lungs, throughout your body. For the most part, you have like very sticky mucus as well. So it's a huge problem. The H in HAG stands for hemochromatosis. That is an increase of iron absorption, which leads to iron toxicity because iron is a metal and we don't need too much of that in our bodies. Now, females actually have a less likelihood of showing severe symptoms due to iron absorption because of their menstrual cycle and things like that. A corresponds with alkaptonuria, which is a this protein. It's called homogentisate, and that is going to lead to your certain proteins not breaking down. You don't really have to know them, and that leads to your black urine. okay? And then G is going to correlate with galactosemia. That is a loss of function for enzymes that break down galactose, and obviously then you're going to have increased levels of galactose. Treatment for that would be to eat less galactose, as you might imagine. And then S is going to correlate with sickle cell. Sickle cell is very important. It's a beta globin defect. If you remember, hemoglobin is a quaternary structure. It has 4 subunits. It has 2 beta subunits as well as 2 alpha subunits, right? So with this beta globin defect, you're actually going to have hemoglobin polymerization, which leads to that sickle cell formation, right? So yeah. And then C is going to correlate with your congenital deafness. That's basically a SRTC gene defect, and that's going to lead to your deafness. You don't have to know too much about that. A is alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. That's going to be an alpha-1 antitrypsin defect. It's very convenient, and that leads to degradation of your lung elasticity. So you could have some breathing problems because of that. S is going to be for SCIDS. Basically, it's a alanine deaminase defect. That protein defect is going to lead to a toxic buildup of deoxy ATP in your B and T cells, which is a big problem for your immune system. And then T is going to correlate with Tay-Sachs. Tay-Sachs is a hexa defect. That protein defect is going to lead to a lysosomal storage disorder, and as a result, you have lipid accumulation throughout your body. And then potions is going to correlate with phenylketonuria, and that is going to be a PAH defect. Basically, that makes your phenylalanine into a tyrosine, and as a result, you have increased phenylalanine, and too much phenylalanine can lead to your brain damage. So this is something particular to watch out about for young children in particular. Hexes is going to be homocystinuria, and that's going to be an increase in your homocysteine, which leads to a connective tissue problem. And as a result, if we can remember from the connective tissue problems from Marfan's, which was up here, it's going to lead to about the same stuff. So like long arms, chest deformity, stuff like that. So now for X-linked recessive, that's going to be lucky girls have really dirty butt sex. So this is going to be like kind of a dirty mnemonic, but the lucky part correlates with your Leishman-Einhorn syndrome, and that's going to be a HGPRT deficiency, my bad, and that's going to lead to gout and orange crystal development. And then you have your girls, that's going to correlate with your G6PD deficiency. That is your glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase, glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. It's going to lead to a hemolytic anemia, which kills your red blood cells. So you have a decrease in red blood cells. That's very bad. And then for HAV, it's going to correlate with your hemophilia A and B. That's very important. Important X-linked recessive disorder. You see this a lot in those royal families that have been marrying each other or trying to keep their bloodlines pure. It's a factor 18, actually, I believe, defect, and it leads to no clotting, which means that if you get a cut, then you're going to kind of bleed on just nonstop because your clotting proteins are not working. And then really is going to be red-green color blindness. Basically, you just can't see some colors. It's X-linked. And then dirty is going to correlate with your dystrophin-associated muscular dystrophy and also your Duchenne disorder. And then butt is going to be a part of that dystrophin-associated muscular dystrophy, and it's going to be the Becker syndrome. And essentially what the difference is well, let me define it first. It's going to be a defect in your dystrophin, as you might imagine, and it's going to lead to your muscle degradation. And then the severity determines whether it's Becker's or Duchenne's. Basically, less severe is going to be Becker's, and this is probably going to be seen more in males because if they get Duchenne's, then they'll die. So they typically die. So before they procreate. So then this would be seen more in females. Okay, and then sex is going to be your SCID, so your X-linked recessive causing your SCID. So it's going to be a gene defect. It's going to be your SCID X1 defect, and that's going to lead to your immunodeficiency. Okay, so now we're at our X-linked dominant disorders. There's going to be 3 of them. Most patients usually die with this X-linked dominant, but there's a few out here, as we can clearly see. So the first one is going to be vitamin D rickets, which is going to be low serum phosphatate, resulting in the softening and bending of your bones. Basically, what it means is, insufficiency in vitamin D, and that's going to lead to weak bones. Okay, and then this can affect both males and females, and then these 2 are going to affect only females, because for males that have this disease, they're not going to live long enough to procreate. So for Rett syndrome, this is going to affect your brain development. So this is a very severe syndrome. It's only occurring in about 1,000 cases a year in the United States. So it affects the brain. It's a very severe syndrome. And you have your incontinentia pigmentosa, which is going to, like, your male is going to die again, like we said, and then it can lead to rashes, hyperpigmentations, things like that, as well as some learning disabilities as well. And then for mitochondria, you only need to know one. It's called MELAS. Basically, it's going to be a defect in your mitochondria, and it's not going to work as well. And then for your Y-linked, there's not that many as well, because the Y chromosome is very small in comparison to literally every other chromosome in the body. But there are 3 major ones. One is your SARI gene mutations. This is going to lead to your phenotype of looking like a boy, like a man. And then you have your HY histocompatibility antigen, as well as that just the presence of hairy ears. So I hope that this was a good summary. I hope that the mnemonics were helpful. They were certainly helpful for me. Thank you, Alexandra, and have a great